Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to another video. And yes, he is back. He's back on my channel. The one and only, the famous or infamous Rob Walker. How are you doing, Rob?
How you doing, Richard? Good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. What we decided to do today is to celebrate the 7-inch single or 12 inches, either or, but it's singles that were not put on actual albums. So they're standalone singles. So we've decided to pick 10, maybe have a couple of bubbling unders, and we'll go through them. Now, these aren't necessarily our overall favourites because there's thousands of singles that were not on albums, especially in the UK. In some cases, some of my choices actually did get on albums in the US, but they weren't in
Yeah,
the UK. So I'm counting them as standalone.
yeah,
So we've got 10. Do you want to start with your number 10 and then I'll follow?
yeah. Like you say, Richard, I'm not really sort of doing this in order, but obviously, I want to talk about the greatest band in the world ever at the start of the video, and then we can sort of wax lyrically about them for a while.
Okay.
Um, so it's just sort of a celebration of the 7-inch single. Uh, for me, when I was sort of 16, it was all about the 7-inch single. I wasn't interested in deep cuts on albums. Save that for sort of the 50-year-olds. So, I'm a lover of the actual song. There's a lot of people on the BC, I don't think they've ever seen a 7-inch single. So, I want to put that right today. So, obviously, my favourite band of all time are the Jam. And we're absolutely spelt for choice when it
Exactly.
comes to Jam singles that weren't on albums. You need to get an abacus out. I think might be 9.
It is 9. 9 of 16 were standalone.
Exactly. So it's pretty difficult. There's number one singles amongst those as well. Is Strange Town, or with great B-sides as well that weren't on albums.
Exactly.
So, but I've decided to choose Funeral Pyre.
Right. Okay. Yes. Brilliant
So,
song.
yeah, I mean, I always feel as though Funeral Pyre sort of came out in 81 when the Jam were on a bit of a sabbatical after a lot of touring in the late 70s, 1980, supporting the Sound Effects album. And in 81, there wasn't a lot of sort of releases by the Jam, but I always loved Funeral Pyre, and I love it more now than I loved it in 81. I mean, I remember I played it that loud in my bedroom that the neighbour was banging on the wall because I was playing it that loud. Because, Bruce Foxton's bass, Rick Butler on the drums, make this just a unforgettable single. But, the Jam had, the Bitterest Pearl, Absolute Beginners, um, When You're Young, all great singles. I've not even showed Going Underground. But yeah, one of many great sort of artists who release a lot of great tracks that weren't on albums. But obviously, I wanted to talk about the Jam. What about you, Richard?
Well, I have one Jam single and I have put it down as number 4, but I'm going to show it now. It's a different one. I'm showing When You're Young because I
Yeah,
think this is absolutely brilliant. 1979, the 3 singles released, 2 of them not an LP, apart from Strange Town, which got on the US version of Setting Suns, but it's not a Setting
no,
Suns. Absolutely brilliant. Now, thing about the Funeral Pyre single, that's like I think the only song that's the
yeah,
music credited to the whole of the band,
it
and
is
quite
there.
because of that bass line, and especially Rick Butler's drums are absolutely brilliant. Coming near the end of it, he's letting rip.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a fantastic song.
yeah,
And uh, cap it off, it's a fantastic video as well with Paul Weller with his coolest hairstyle too. God,
yeah,
cut really short. But When You're Young, I had down as as I say, my number 4. I love this, absolutely love it. Another great video, and the B side is Smithers Jones. It always bugged me a little bit that the band version was a B side and the orchestral version was on the LP. I
yeah,
think it should be the other way around. I think the
yeah,
band should have been on the album and then stick the orchestral on here. It's just like a little bonus. But
yeah,
another fantastic single, and this got to number 17 only on the charts, which
Yeah.
is just before the Eaton Rifles, and then the Eaton
Yeah.
Rifles turned them into the powerhouse UK best band ever.
Yeah.
Euro Power number 4, but I think it was just actually bought up by all the Jam fans because I think it fell very quickly after it peaked at
Yeah.
number 4, but still
Yeah.
classic.
Yeah.
So that was not my number 10. So I have to move everything up a little bit now.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, it's more. I wanted it to be just more of a celebration of the format, really, and the idea that bands would concentrate on singles. You know, the single would be the most important thing because predominantly the fans were going to be teenagers who didn't have the disposable income to be going out buying albums. So I wanted to show a single by a band from the Manchester area. No surprise. I want to show the Buzzcocks.
All right.
So this single, I always loved how the Buzzcocks had these different colours on the label. They were all sort of bespoke.
That is my all-time favorite Buzzcocks song, "Love You More."
All right, okay, Richard. So yeah, I mean the Buzzcocks. If you look at 1978, the singles they released, and they released 5 singles in 1978, and there was only a couple of them that were on albums. Of course, this came out, I think, in '81,
yeah,
which is the singles collection. But on here, so the Buzzcocks' first single was the Spiral Scratch EP, which featured Howard Devoto. But he soon left the band and joined Form Magazine. But on here we've got Orgasm Addict, What Do I Get, I Don't Mind, which was on the debut album, Love You More, Ever Fallen in Love With, which was on Love Bites, Promises, again, that's not on an album. I think in America, maybe some of these tracks featured on albums, but we're talking about the home of music, the UK. Everybody's Happy. Everybody's Happy Nowadays. A great single as well. And then Harmony in My Head in 1979. So just a great singles band, the Buzzcocks. Between, like say, 78, 79, if, you know, if 2 or 3 more of those singles would have appeared on those albums, like Love You More, you know, it's a bit of a hodgepodge album. It's got some good tracks on it, but, you know, if you put Promises on there and Love You More, suddenly, I mean, like I say, we talk about the VC, you get some person holding a record up saying how great it is, and predominantly they talk about the singles that are off the album. They start rhyming off how great the album is, and they're talking about the singles. So again, this is a celebration of the singles. So yeah, the Buzzcocks for me, one of the sort of great singles bands of the late 70s.
A lot of the singles obviously would have enhanced the albums, but I just think they're extra special for not being on the album. So I do. And if you wait a while, there'll be a greatest hits come out anyway, and you'll be able to gather them all together. Yeah. So, well, my number 9, or my next choice, and we're sticking with the punk theme here. And it's Stiff Little Fingers, Straw Dogs, which was a standalone single between Inflammable Material and Nobody's Heroes.
Yeah.
And this here, I think, is closer to Inflammable Material because it really does have the piss and vinegar sound of that album, but it's slightly better produced. So it's veering again towards the Nobody's Heroes. It's just an absolutely blinding song with a really good chorus. And I love the B-side. You can't say crap on the radio, but you can say it on the VC because I just said it. But it's an absolutely brilliant single. And it's forgotten about. It only got to number 44 in the charts, but yet again, they weren't hitting the charts anyway. I think their best one, they just hit the top 20 with At the Age, which is one of the singles in my view. But this here, fantastic. And if you ever want to hear it, you'll find it on I think it's on the reissue CD of Inflammable Material, or it might be Nobody's Heroes, not sure, one of the two, but absolutely cracking single from the guys from Belfast.
Yeah, when I was getting these records together, when I was, you know, going through my highly sophisticated selections process, I did flick past that single. Of course, Bruce Boxton played with the Stiff Little Fingers in the latter years. But one of the first concerts I ever went to was Stiff Little Fingers at the Apollo in 1980, and that was some gig.
Oh, I used to have a videotape of them playing in Belfast from 1980, and I wore that tape out. Never seen them live, and they were really at their peak. Unbelievable. Yeah,
they were. You know, there was something special because of the Troubles also in Ireland. You know, the songs seemed a little bit more than the other punk bands that were around at the time.
The thing about that, Rob, is I didn't mind them singing about the Troubles because they were in the middle of the Troubles.
Exactly, yeah.
It's the one from outside singing about the Troubles. I think, keep your nose out, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like the Police, yeah.
Exactly, Invisible Sun.
Right. Do you want me to choose one?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I'm trying to. So I'm going to choose another band from Manchester. Mm-hmm. So there's a few bands from Manchester here. So I'm going to show New Order and Temptation. So New Order, when the singles came out in the beginning of their career, none of them were on albums. Mm-hmm. So Joy Division was just a little bit before my time. But in 1981, when New Order started to release stuff, I was like 17, so I did have some money to buy singles. And they released Ceremony, and they released Possession, and then they released Temptation, which none of them featured on the debut album Movement. You know, and I hear people sort of criticizing that debut album. I actually really do like it. But again, the point you made about standalone singles, they have that, they're extra special, if you like. But if Movement would have had a couple of these tracks on it, it would have certainly enhanced that album. And then, of course, I think it was 83 when Blue Monday came out. So, you know, Blue Monday came out on a 12-inch. It wasn't on an album. I think in America they put it on a CD, but I don't know who was buying CDs in 1983. They put it on Power, Corruption and Lies, I think. But my studio album copy doesn't have Blue Monday on it. But yeah, Temptation, but any of those sort of first 5 New Order singles. And of course, he went on sort of in the beginning of the 90s, World in Motion. You know, they didn't find an album for that to go on. True Faith, which was a big single as well, wasn't on an album either. But yeah, I think Temptation, certainly one of my favourite singles by New Order.
I like New Order, but I thought New Order got a little bit too dancey for me as the decade went on. Blue Monday is one of the best singles ever released. And I never even thought of picking that for some reason, but still, brilliant. Well, my next one is from a girl who most of her singles were actually standalone. And that is Kirsty MacColl. And this is her debut, They Don't Know, from 1979, which did absolutely nothing. Apparently, it was a big radio hit, whatever the hell that means, but it didn't transfer into sales. And obviously, everybody's covered this. Andrea Corr has even covered this, and Tracy Ullman did it as well. And I think Tracy Ullman's version is even better, but it was on her album. But this is a fantastic song and a brilliant debut single from Kirsty MacColl. Other standalone singles from her were He's on the Beach, her version of the Beach Boys' You Still Believe in Me, and of course A New England, which was by Billy Bragg, your mate.
Yeah.
So Kirsty MacColl, They Don't Know, brilliant song, brilliant artist as well. And the albums of the 80s are really good. The debut Desperate Character, which is more new wavy, and at times going back to the 50s, and then you get the album Kite, which is an absolute masterpiece from 1989. So
Yeah,
that's
I've seen you showed Kite quite recently, didn't you?
was it me or was it James Griffiths? It might have been James Griffiths.
Might have been James Griffiths. Yeah, I've heard you talking about it though. Yeah, she's involved in a record I'm going to show a little bit later.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, I obviously you spoke Billy Bragg. You know, he's someone who could have featured in this, and her version of New England. I actually prefer her version of New England over Billy Bragg. So,
Didn't she
you
add a
know,
few extra lyrics to her version?
yeah,
I
yeah,
thought so.
yeah. So what we're on now is it number 7?
Oh, I haven't got a clue anymore. Just carry on.
Yeah. So I want to show. I'm pretty sure this wasn't on an album, and it's a band who were massive at the beginning of the 80s, and they only had one number one. So I'm not sure if you can think who that is.
Right. Don't know.
So it's Madness.
Right. Okay. I was going to choose a Madness one, but it wasn't that. I was going to choose The Sun and the Rain from '83.
Right. So yeah, Sun and the Rain. Is that not on an album? That's not on an album, is no. So yeah, House of Fun.
Yeah.
So this is I think this is a Spanish version. I like the cover. So yeah, so Madness were sort of in the certainly at the beginning of the 80s. Everybody had a lot of time for Madness. They were one of those bands. You know, their singles, the videos were always, you know, hilarious. Really, weren't they? They had the videos were something special. You always sort of look forward to the videos as much as the songs. And all, you know, they had a run of singles where, you know, they must have had a dozen top 10 singles, but they could never sort of get that number one single. But then they released House of Fun in 1982. Again, had a great video. I know there's a lot of people in the UK got a lot of time for Madness, and you know, I'm one of them. So their albums I find to be quite mixed. I don't think they've actually done what I would call as like a great album.
Well, I like the first one a lot. And saying that, I'm waiting on a delivery today of a Madness album I just ordered. The
right.
recent ones is at the Liberty of Norton Folgate.
Yeah,
it's really good, but I thought I'd have a punt.
Yeah, I mean, I have this thing, you know, me with singles. You know, I love singles so much, but you know, I'll say that I don't like their albums. I find that albums hard work. You know, Squeeze come into that category, and I think Madness probably, for me, come into that category a little bit with Squeeze. Maybe it's just me not spending enough time with their albums. You know, you do have to spend time with albums, don't you?
You do.
Yeah, I mean, when I used to go to the Cat's Whiskers in Oldham, trapping off in 1982, then we all used to sort of dance around to Madness and the Jam. You know, those were such happy times. Certainly don't do any trapping off now, but still playing the music. So yeah, House of Fun by Madness.
Good choice. Well, before I go on, I'm going to say that there was 2 singles I was going to include in this, but I'm not going to because I mentioned them in the video I did yesterday for Ian ranking the Obscures contest.
Right.
There's a plug, Ian. I said I would plug your contest, but I think you might have one of them anyway. But if you don't, I'll mention them at the end. This one here, and it is Toya, Thunder in the Mountains. Now, this standalone single in 1981. She's having major success with her album Anthem, and the 2 big hit singles, It's a Mystery and I Want to Be Free. But this was the next single, which wasn't included on any album. And this was the best thing I think she had done, you know, up to this time. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I love the video again with her in the makeshift chariot and the hair all over the place, as you can see here. And her next 2 singles were also standalone, Good Morning Universe and Be Proud, Be Loud, Be Heard, which I think are very, very strong songs as well.
Yeah.
But that was our peak of our powers, really. And it was a standalone single, and absolutely brilliant. And it got to number 4. It did really
Hmm.
well. Thunder in the Mountains.
Yeah, I'm not overly familiar with Toya's catalogue, so I wasn't aware whether that was on an album or not. But she comes into that category as well, doesn't she? You know,
Yeah.
we're of a similar vintage, so you know we've all got a soft spot for Toya.
Well, she was in Quadrophenia, and she was in that other one, with Jubilee X.
Jubilee, yeah.
So, yeah, she was one of the original punks, really.
Yeah. So the time has come to show the greatest band from Liverpool. So
Right.
people might think I'm going to be showing a record by the Coral or China Crisis or Cast, but no, I'm not going to show them great bands. I'm going to show Echo and the Bunnymen. Oh, great! So yeah, never stop.
That was a bubbling under, so I'll show that now.
Yeah. So with the flip side, Heads Will Roll.
I didn't realize that until you mentioned it in the previous video of mine.
Yeah. So I absolutely love Echo and the Bunnymen. I don't think Bring On the Dancing Horses is on an album either.
It's on. I was considering that, but it's on the soundtrack for. Is it Pretty in Pink? That it was part of the film.
Either that or is it The Lost Boys, maybe, or something like that. Oh no, People Are Strange, weren't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, Echo and the Bunnymen, when they released this, it just comes under that category as a sort of a great standalone single. You know, Back of Love and Ocean Rain, Silver, tracks like that. But Never Stop's always been one of my favourite singles of all time. So I was always going to show it on this video. But yeah, the greatest band from Liverpool, absolutely no argument whatsoever. Echo and the Bunnymen, and Never Stop.
Well, I'll argue with you. The greatest band from Liverpool, or maybe Birkenhead, is OMD.
Well, yeah, I forgot to mention that. They're the 5th best.
Okay, this one here, I think, is a magnificent single from 1980. It's from a band who were brilliant for their first 3 albums, and then they were okay. They went very, very, very commercial. But this is UB40 and Earth Day Screaming. And it's a double A side with Dream a Lie. And normally when you have double A sides, one is better than the other. But these two are as good as each other. But I think I would still prefer the Earth Day Screaming. It's the first time I actually heard UB40 because I'd never heard of Food for Thought, you know, until I saw this on Top of the Pops, and I thought this is absolutely fantastic. And this was when they were on the Department label before they went to, oh, this is the Graduate label, sorry, and then they went to the Department label. And I just think it's really good white man's reggae, really, and fantastic on both sides. Dream a Lie is every bit as good as the Earth Day Screaming, and it got to number 10 on the charts in 1980.
Yeah, I mean, I've got those early UB40 albums, and I won't hear a bad word say about them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, sort of at the beginning of the 80s, we were so fortunate, weren't we, with all these sort of great bands that came, like, so UB40, I always kind of, a lot of my friends who were into sort of the two-tone, they all liked UB40 as well, and because they're from Birmingham as well, which is so close to Coventry. Great choice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show the greatest band. There's a lot of great bands here, and I'm going to show the greatest band from Oldham.
From Oldham?
Yeah. Oh. So anyone who's watching this in, you know, Venezuela or wherever I know you've got a lot of subscribers, Richard, from all over the world. So the Inspiral Carpets.
Right, okay.
So this single came out, I think it was in 1990. So it's called the Island Head EP. And it's got a track called The Biggest Mountain on it. So Graham, that's who I went to school with, the guy there, the trendy guitarist. So the Spiral Carpets are releasing the greatest hits on vinyl in a couple of weeks. So part of the sort of Manchester scene, they're actually formed in 1980, and I was around there when they were formed. And I can remember going to a football match, and someone was telling me that Graham was forming this band, and the name of the band, I was just laughing, you know. But I'm not laughing now, am I? I mean, I had a drum kit in '83, but I started to go out with this girl, and I wasn't around, and we didn't have social media. So, you know, who knows what might have happened. But the Spiral Carpets are one of my favourite sort of groups from that time period. And this is a standalone single, and it's a really good one. So, The Biggest Mountain by the Spiral Carpets.
So they were going a good 10 years or so before they actually had success, or
Yeah.
before they even got a. Do you know when they got a record contract?
We got the contracts in about '89.
Right, so about 9 years before they even got the contract.
Yeah, I mean, when they were very loosely sort of a band in 1980. So I used to play cricket with Graham. So, you know, he was sort of forming a. But I played cricket with Graham when Lady Diana and Charles got married. We played cricket that day because we weren't interested in the royal wedding. And he was talking about the Spiral Carpets on that day. So I want to do a video in the future showing all my Spiral Carpets collection. I've got so much stuff, you know, and I want to sort of bore everybody. So yeah, but yeah, the Spiral Carpets.
I always thought
you don't have to watch it, Richard. It's all right.
I have one Spiral Carpets single, and it's called, if I can remember, it was got in a cheapie pack. Is it Caravan?
Yeah, Caravan. Yeah,
I've got that one. So I have.
Yeah, it's a good one.
There you go. No, I remember seeing your guy with the bully beef haircut out of the dandy.
Yeah.
I thought that. Okay, my next one is 1960s. I have a couple of 60s singles actually, and this one's from 1967, a number 3 hit, and it's the Kinks' Autumn Almanac, which was the first to Sunset. And this is as English as you'll get. It really is. You know, your roast beef on Sunday, your football on a Saturday, and Blur owe this single an awful lot because you could put Blur on this instead of the Kinks and you would automatically think it was an actual Blur single. I think it's brilliant.
Exactly.
Kate Davis is a fantastic singer. And the thing about the 60s is you find that there's an awful lot of standalone singles, unless you live in America, where they bung them all on American albums. But over here, they didn't. And it's on every greatest hits CD or LP. Absolutely fantastic single, Autumn Almanac from '67. And the B-side of it, is Mr. Pleasant. I must stress it's a fantastic song as well, which was a exported A-side in its own right. So Autumn Almanac with Mr. Pleasant, my choice.
I mean, we spoke about it before, how great the B-sides are on a lot of these, you know, these standalone singles. I can think of a few bands in particular where the B-sides were just as good as the A-sides. I wanted to stay with the 60s theme and show another band from Merseyside that people might have heard of. So I was going to show the Beatles. So Strawberry Fields with Penny Lane. So am I right that that's because I'm not a connoisseur, I'm not an expert on these guys, but I don't think these appear on an album. Is that correct?
No, they don't. Well, they appear on Magical Mystery Tour, which is not a real album anyway. It's a compilation.
Yeah, exactly.
An American copy there, so you have on the Capitol label.
Yeah, no. Well, I'll import the Beatles from wherever I can get my hands on them. You know, cost isn't an issue. But yeah, I can't remember where I've got that one as well. I used to have them in my jukebox. You know, I joke around about the Beatles, but you know, Beatles and the Stones released a number of standalone singles at the time. Because I suppose in the 60s, are we correct to be thinking that, you know, the albums weren't as important as obviously when we got into the 1970s, the album was king. But in the 60s, the singles were king, weren't they? Really?
They were king, yeah. But the Beatles, I have to give them credit, made the albums king as well, and so did the Rolling Stones. But before that,
Yeah,
you know, it was singles all the way. And even in the early 70s, apart from the the really trendy hippie albums band that didn't release any singles like Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd,
yeah,
your glam rock ones were really singles based, which I'm going to come
exactly.
on
Yeah,
to shortly. But their albums were actually quite good as well. But it was the singles that sold. Some of the albums of the big bands like the Sweet didn't sell at all.
no,
But you mentioned the Rolling Stones, so I'm going to throw in a Rolling Stones one as well. And it's I
yeah,
Can't Get Satisfaction, which is an absolutely fantastic song. You can't
yeah,
deny it. Brilliant song. But it got on out of our heads in America. Here,
right.
standalone single, and the B side is like the bluesy type Spider and the Fly, which is okay. But the Stones B sides I never thought were as good as their A
Yeah,
sides. I'm counting Satisfaction, brilliant song, #1 hit in '65.
right. So we're going to go back. We're going to go back to Manchester now because why not? So, but not who you think, Richard. We'll save that for a moment. So let's talk about a band from the late 80s going into the 90s. So it's the Stone Roses.
Mm-hmm.
So my son's got quite a lot of my son's 27 now, lives in London, but when he was in his late teens, he adopted a lot of my records and all my Smiths and my Stone Roses. He's got them now in London. So the 12-inch single, Fool's Gold, What the World is Waiting For, came out in I think it came out in 89 stroke 90. And that was when the baggy scene, if you like, was at its full height. And I think Fool's Gold might have been put on the American version of the debut album, which sounds Americans have got to have a few singles put on an album for them to be interested in it, haven't they? So, but Fool's Gold was a massive hit, and they still play it a lot now on the radio. You know, these radio stations, when they got the playlists and they'll play a Stone Roses track, you can more or less guarantee. Although the Stone Roses do have a number of, for a band who released pretty small number of singles, Want to Be Adored, etc., I Am the Resurrection, but I think Fool's Gold is a great standalone single. And yeah, big favourites of mine, the
Did
Stone Roses.
did Fool's Gold come out before the album or after the album? Or was it reissued after the album again?
I think it came out after the album.
Okay.
You're testing my memory here now. It was such an amazing time in Manchester at the end of like 89, 90, going out. I'm not going to say, because I weren't into the drug scene or anything, it was a bit of a blur. But there was so much music coming out at that time in Manchester. It was brilliant. From what I can remember, nearly everybody had a Stone Roses t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
We all had a Smiths t-shirt, and then we all had a Stone Roses t-shirt. You went in HMV in Manchester, you're just full of Smiths t-shirts or Stone Roses t-shirts. But I think it might have come out after the album.
Well, my next choice is by a band whose singer I think you've been buying a few records of lately. That's Roxy Music, and it's Virginia Plain.
All right.
Again, this was on the US version of the debut album, and it's totally out of place because it sounds completely different to the rest of the album. This is absolutely fantastic. It's a brilliant single, #4 in the charts. I think it then got to the top 10 again whenever it was reissued around the time of their greatest hits. So they put this out again and it charted again.
Yeah.
I just think Ferry's vocals are brilliant, and the whole song is completely different to anything else in 1972. And they had another standalone single as well after this, Pajamarama, which is nearly as good, which I actually bought when I was 7 years old, believe it or not. So it was one of the first few singles. But Virginia Plain, absolute classic single from '72.
Yeah, I mean, I've got that on picture sleeve.
Have you? Then you must
Yeah.
have the.
So
You,
I saw that when I was flicking through, and I couldn't be bothered to see whether it was on an album or not. But you know, Brian Ferry, like you say, I think he's great. Brian Ferry, I think he's so underrated. I know you put there's people like Dylan, etc., and Bowie put up there, on a pedestal, but people seem to skip past Brian Ferry. He seems to, he either slips under the radar. I'm not sure what it is, whether it's because he does do quite a lot of covers and things like that. But I really like Brian Ferry.
if you get into Brian Ferry, it's very cheap too because all his albums, his solo
Yeah,
albums, are cheap, so they are. You
I
can
know.
buy them for pennies, and they're not
I know.
bad.
No.
The 80s ones are really good. If you look at the 80s ones, they're more like the Roxy Music Avalon type, especially Boys and
Yeah.
Girls. Like Avalon
Yeah.
Part 2.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Brian Ferry. So while we're on that Manchester theme, another band from Manchester, but again, not one that you're thinking of. So I don't know who you're thinking of. Anyway, so let's have the Happy Mondays.
Ah, right, okay.
So the Happy Mondays released Hallelujah on this. So this features Kirsty MacColl mix. So
Ah,
that's
right.
where the Kirsty MacColl comes in. So on top of the pops, if you actually watch Sean Ryder and Bez and the rest of the gang doing Hallelujah, then you'll see Kirsty MacColl, and she just adds something special to it.
She is special. She's very special.
She's special. She's one of the special ones. And the Happy Mondays, again, with the Stone Roses, big part of that Manchester scene. So I just wanted to give them a plug. I can remember, I've had some crap haircuts. I've still got them. But yeah, Sean Ryder's had a few dodgy haircuts. So yeah.
Oh, good choice. Well, my last two of the 10 are both glam rock. Now, the first one I'll show is a band that I know you don't really like, and that's Slade and Come On, Feel the Noise. Now,
I like Slade, they're all right.
Did you not get rid of one of the Slade albums you had? I can remember as VCLT.
Well, yeah, because they're a good singles band, aren't they?
Well, fair enough. I'll give you that. But this is the song number one, straight in number one in the charts in 1973. Three of their singles from 73 were standalone. It did get on the Sladist album at the end of that year, which is like a greatest hits.
Yeah.
And for those in America, they probably know this as Quiet Riot's big hit from 80. And of course, Oasis covered it as well. And I think the Oasis version is actually very good. So it was the side of what is it? Don't Look Back in Anger. I think so.
Yeah.
All those ones I know. But number one hit from Nutty and the Boys, Baby, 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 great fun. Loved it then, love it now. So that's my first glam choice.
Yeah, I like Slade. I mean, I absolutely love How Does It Feel?
Brilliant song. Absolutely brilliant.
And I love Every Day as well.
I like it, but I think it's okay.
My friends, Stan,
Loved it. Great fun.
Right. So let's talk about a band that only Britain can produce. So Great Britain, United Kingdom, England, whatever you want to call it. So let's show the Smiths.
Okay, brilliant song.
So this is William.
Yep.
So William, it was really nothing. So, like yourself, Richard, we absolutely adore the Smiths.
Love them.
And I think you mentioned it, that they came around and probably saved the 1980s.
It did, because the Jam had split up, and although the Style Council were good, and I was nearly going to pick either A Solid Bond or Speak Like a Child, the Smiths took the Jam and sort of said, well, we won't forget about the Jam, but we're new, we're different, and I was absolutely all by them, loved them.
Yeah, I mean, when we got into sort of 83, 84, I kind of stopped listening to the Jam because that, you know, I'd grown out of them for a few years, and you know, the Smiths were the band, and This Charming Man and Hand in Glove, Ask, Panic, so many. Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now. I mean, people have got to remember, Hatful of Hollow is not a studio album.
Exactly.
It's just a hodgepodge of singles put together because the Smiths are so popular at that time. He wanted to bring some out the record company, and you cannot overemphasize how brilliant the Smiths were and how important they were in the mid '80s. Like I say, New Order were doing things. We're great fans of Lloyd Cole, etc. But the Smiths stood alone. They were that, you know, and anybody, you know, you get these people who with very sort of low IQs saying, you know, they're miserable. You know, they're not listening to the lyrics. You know, I mean,
funny as hell, so they are. They're hilarious.
You burst out laughing.
I know.
You burst out laughing when you're listening to them. So yeah, the Smiths, probably, you know, there's some amazing bands who've done a huge catalogue of great non-album singles, and the Smiths are right up there. So yeah, the Smiths.
Perfect. One of mine was going to be This Charming Man, but because I showed it in the last video.
Yeah.
But the thing about the Williams single is, if you take the 12-inch of that and you look at the 3 tracks on it, William is probably the least famous of the 3 tracks, because in the idea of Please, Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want, which was covered by, name me the group, I can't remember.
Well, I know Dream Academy did it.
But... yeah, and it got on one of those I think it was Pretty in Pink or Some Kind of Wonderful films.
Yeah.
And another one was How Soon Is Now, which is probably one of the most famous songs ever. So Williams, the least favorite of the least famous of the 3. Fantastic singer. Right, my last choice before the Bubbling Unders, and it's TRex, Ride a White Swan. And yet again, this was put on the American version of the TRex album. But this brought Mark Bolan to fandom, really. The next single really started the glam rock off, which was Hot Love. But this is just sort of a lovely little riff. It's very gentle. They say it's like a Chuck Berry riff. I can't see that, but it's a very gentle riff. And Morrissey stole it. So he did for the song Certain People I Know in 1990. Exactly the same, but I love it as well. Absolutely brilliant. The B-side, this Summertime Blues, which is a version of the Eddie Cochran song, and then there is This Love, which was on the LP. But Right Away Swan, 2 minutes 20 seconds of brilliance, and again, standalone single. And T-Rex had so many, because they had Hot Love, the Children of the Revolution, Solid Gold, Easy Action, 20th Century Groover. Those were all standalone singles. Truck on Time. That's my choice.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure when it comes to T-Rex which were on albums, because I don't really have any studio albums by T-Rex. I have like a best of sort of compilation. So I'm quite lazy when it comes to T-Rex, but I love the singles, you know.
Brilliant. Oh no, I'm happy enough if you like the singles. That's good enough for me, because the singles are fantastic.
Yeah, so we're going to do a few bubbling unders. And
have you not got one more left? No.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do it.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, have you got 3 or 4 bubbling unders? Just show them, and then I'll show you mine, and then...
Yeah, we can... I'll show you mine, and you show me yours. Then we'll start the video again. Right, so here's a band from Coventry that we get excited about. So the Specials, Ghost Town. So the Specials released this, and then obviously it got to #1, and it was during the time of the riots in the UK. So it was really sort of it was poignant, if you like, during that time. And obviously we've had the sad loss of Terry Hall recently. But Ghost Town is but the Specials also Rat Race. So Rat Race isn't on an album. I think it's on the American version of more specials.
Mhm.
But the debut single, Gangsters, isn't on an album either. So again, the specials didn't release that many singles. I mean, Too Much Too Young got to #1. That was a different version than the
Yes,
one on the album.
the live version's far better, by the way.
Exactly. So, the specials certainly come into that category of a band releasing great standalone singles. So, do you want to show one of yours and I'll.
You go ahead and carry on. A couple more.
Okay, so let's just quickly talk about a band from Leeds who don't get much prominence in the vinyl community apart from Headley likes them. So it's The Wedding Present.
Right, okay.
So I really like The Wedding Present. They released 12 singles in '92. They released a single every month with a cover version on the flip side. And this is California that came out I think it came out in the June. And to me, it's my favorite of those 12. But I love all 12 of those. I think last year they did it again. And I was looking at the singles in Rough Trade in London, and they were like £9, the singles. So I couldn't really justify paying £9 for a single. That's sort of my coming from Oldham, not wanting to spend £9 on a single. But The Wedding Present was certainly, I think when the Smiths split, a lot of people had them down as a potential band for people who like the Smiths to get, sort of follow. I love the George Best album and the Sea Monsters album. I really like The Wedding Present. They don't tend to get that much sort of love on YouTube. But this is a really good single. It was the 6th one. That's the clue. It came out in June. And then another guy who I know you love a lot is Elvis Costello. So I'm pretty sure that Radio isn't on an album.
It's not. It's on the US version.
Stop talking about America. What have they ever given us? From Trident Missiles. So so Radio. And I think watching The Detective again, I don't think that's not on the English.
It's not the English, but I don't want to say it now, but it is.
Don't even say it. But Elvis Costello is someone who I'm getting sort of more love for him. You go through these phases with artists. I certainly do. Maybe 10 years ago, I was getting a bit sick of Elvis Costello, and I didn't really play him. But I've started to listen to him a lot more recently. I'm going through a bit of an Elvis phase.
I still think it's 77 to Trust are his best years. The Nick Lowe years, and I'm not saying that because I'm a Nick Lowe fan. I just think the albums are more consistent. But the one I really do like from the 90s is Brutal Youth, which is a very good album.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with that album.
It's very good. There are 4 singles off it. Sulky Girl, very reminiscent of something from Armed Forces. It's very, very good.
Yeah, I know that one.
Okay. So is that you done?
Well, I've got loads, but that's enough. You've seen enough.
Right. Well, I have 2 singles by this group, and I know you wanted to show this, so I'm showing it for you. And it's Joy Division.
Oh.
And have you got it?
No, but I've got something else by them. But carry on. Yeah.
Right. The only other one I have is Transmission. All right, Atmosphere. So I don't think this wasn't on the Closer album. Is it Closer or Closer?
Depends whereabouts in Salford you're from, but yeah.
But excellent single. Paul Young even covered this on his No Parley. And I think that, along with Blue Monday, brought this back into the charts again in 1983. So another one I have is Transmission, and I don't think it was on the album either, was it?
No.
Next one, you could argue is on an album, but it's technically not, and it's Reckless Eric hitting Miss Judy. Now, you can say that this is on Big Smash, but it's on the free LP you get with Big Smash, which is the Whole Wild World album, which was released in America. So it's like a greatest hits, if you want to call it that, or a best of, free with the album. But this is fantastic. And unfortunately, Reckless Eric never had a hit in his life. over here, and I
No.
think it's the voice that did it. People just found his voice quite irritating, but he's
Yeah.
an excellent songwriter, really, really good songwriter. Whole Wide World is one of the best singles out. So, but Hitting This Duty has always been my favorite. And the
Which,
last, hmm?
oh, no, go on. I'm going to show a sneaky one that you'll really like.
Okay, well, I'll show two more, and then you show your sneaky one. Okay.
Go on then.
Big Country,
All
Wonderland.
right.
This was between The Crossing and the Steel Town album, and this is just fantastic. Now, it does get on the issues of Steel Town, but this is, I think, my favorite Big Country single, maybe along with their debut one, Harvest Home, but always reminds me of the start of 1984. And then I'm going to finish with another glam classic. This is Wizard See My Baby Jive. Now, the reason I'm picking this is Roy Wood himself said, the singles are for success, and the LPs are for me to play about and do what I want to do. So if you actually hear the Wizard album around this time, it sounds nothing like this. It's like experimental jazz. It's hard to get into. There's screaming in it and everything. This is like a Phil Spector type song. I think it's really, really good. And
brilliant.
Single #1 hit in '73. So what's your sneaky one?
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure this wasn't on an album. It might have been on a greatest hits, but you'll be pretty pleased that I've got this. So it's Philadelphia Freedom.
Yeah, good. Brilliant song.
I absolutely love Philadelphia Freedom.
Fantastic song.
I think, yeah, it came out, I think, was it 75?
75, yeah.
Yeah, so in 75, 76, I was getting, I know this sounds like so American, obviously Philadelphia, but just got a bit of an American feel to it.
Yeah.
And so I think I've said before, in sort of 76, I was listening to quite a lot, 76, 77, just before punk, a lot of sort of like Boss Skaggs and Andrew Gold, you know, stuff like that. And this sort of 10cc, I suppose, a little bit as well. But I think this is a great standalone single by the Elton John band. So, yeah, I've really enjoyed it doing this, Richard.
So have I. With regards to that single, people don't realise how successful Elton John actually was in '75. He had two #1 albums in America, and I believe he was responsible for 2% of worldwide record sales in 1975, which is huge. Absolutely huge. You know,
that's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. But yeah, Rob, had a great time. Never laughed so much again. I don't know whether I should edit some of this stuff or not. Nah, keep it all in. Why not?
Keep it in. Keep it all in, you sung that.
There's so many innuendos. You can call this Carry On Up the Rob. Anyway, that's us for now, folks. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope to have another video quite soon. So it's goodbye from me, and it's
goodbye from me.
all the best now. Bye-bye.